Thank you. Yes, my name's Clare Devereux. I work for Food Matters. I'll say a little bit about Food Matters in a minute, but when I was telling colleagues in the office that I was coming to this conference, they said, but you're not working on tourism and you're not working on fish, which is true, although we are working a little bit on a sustainable fish campaign, which I will say a little bit about. But I'm not working directly on either of those issues. If you like, I'm working, and what I want to talk about this afternoon is work that we're doing across the UK, which is upstream, if you like. It's taking a more strategic and higher level approach to the food system as a whole. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that's come about and the work that we're doing now, and hopefully how that ends up supporting the work that you guys are doing either individually in projects or in universities. So just a little bit, indeed, about my organisation, Food Matters. We're a not-for-profit social enterprise. We work to create sustainable and fair food systems. We do a mix of consultancy work, project delivery, so we might be delivering cookery lessons one day, or going to the House of Commons to talk to politicians about food policy the next day. We do a wide variety of work, both at national level but also at grassroots community level. We are, sorry, I've hit that slide to a, oh, she's not there, the woman that, anyway, just to say that we're based in Brighton, so we are just up the coast. We do work nationally, but we're based in Brighton and Hove, and so we work a lot locally within our community in Brighton and Hove. I'm sure there are several people here from there, but we also do national work. So the slide that I've got up there, you can probably see, I think it's important to take a moment to remind ourselves why we're actually doing this work. I certainly value that, because you get stuck into your work and you kind of forget what the bigger picture is sometimes. So just to remind us about the crises that we're facing, in actual fact, that are food related, I've got a few sort of facts and figures for you. In the UK, diet-related disease means that our children may become the first generation to live shorter lives than their parents. Over 30% of children in the UK are obese. From field to landfill site, food farming is responsible for over 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. In the UK, a rapid decline in cooking skills means that we have the highest consumption of ready meals in Europe. Most farmers, both in the UK and internationally within Europe, earn less than the minimum wage, and food workers get the lowest pay in all sectors. Food price inflation and falling wages means that the number of people suffering from food poverty in this country has risen to above 4 million, and I'm sure those of you who live in the UK will know that food poverty is an issue that hits the pages at the moment, day after day. So we are facing crises in our food system, a public health crisis and a climate change and environmental degradation crisis. Those are the two key things that drive the work that we do in Food Matters, probably drives the work that you're all doing as well, how to address those critical issues that we're facing. The other key driver, again, which I think will have resonance with you, is the economic value of food. In the UK, I think we spend something like £180 billion a year on food within catering and retail sector. So we're spending an enormous amount of food. There's an enormous economic value to the economy. And also within that money that we as consumers spend, we've got an awful lot of power. So in Food Matters and in the work that we're doing, we work on these three pillars of sustainability, if you like: public health, the environment, and also the economy, all of which food sits and has an impact in, both negatively but also positively. I think that's really something that we probably all recognise, that although food is causing an awful lot of problems in our society, there are also enormous opportunities for addressing those problems through food. Food sits, indeed, at the heart of so many of the public policy issues that we're all addressing: health and well-being, economic development, social cohesion, culture, reducing inequalities, and environmental sustainability. Food, in its web that it spins around us, it has an impact on all those issues.
So if we want to really start addressing them, we can use food so successfully as a vehicle to do that. And the other great thing about food, and why in my organisation, and again probably you guys, use food to address all these public policy crises that we're facing, is because you can engage people with food. Everybody has something to say about food. Everybody eats 3-4 times a day, sometimes too much. But we all eat, and we're all passionate about food, and we all have something to say, whether it's the quality of the burgers we buy at McDonald's or the more quality food that we might like to buy in farmers' markets. We all have an opinion, and we're all engaged with it. So as a way of getting community and individual engagement, food is perfect for addressing a range of other issues. So I said at the beginning that my organisation is based in Brighton, and we work nationally, but we've worked in our city, in our community, for the last 11 years to look at how we can support a more sustainable food system in our city. And I just want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing there and how that's now led to a national programme of work that we're doing. Essentially, when we started work 11 years ago in Brighton, it was a different time, it was a different culture. Food is on the agenda much more now. It wasn't there. Nobody was taking responsibility for food in our city. It fell within the gaps of departments, both at a local level but also nationally. Nobody would address the issue of food, except in silos and compartments across departments or cities. And we wanted to change that because we recognised the value of food, and we wanted to bring it together to a place where food sat, where food was visible in our city, from all points of the food supply chain, as consumers, as producers, as processors, as retailers, businesses, local authority officers working on health. We wanted to bring all that together and make it visible in our city so that we could work harder together to make changes. And we created the Brighton and Hove Food Partnership, which is now 11 years old. It's not the only one in the country now, because as I'm going to go on to say, we've developed more. But at the time, it was the only food partnership in the country. And in that sense, it's been pioneering a way to use food to address all these issues and to improve our food system. We also were one of the first cities in the country to develop a food strategy. You can see I stole the title for my speech, Spade to Spoon, Making the Connections. That was the title of the first food strategy that we had in Brighton and Hove in 2006. It's since been revised, and we've got another edition, mainly because we'd achieved all the objectives that we'd set out in that original food strategy. So we've now got a food strategy, Spade to Spoon, Digging Deeper, which is informing food work across the city. So we've developed an organisation in Brighton and Hove that now employs 18 staff, got a budget of nearly £1 million, and we're doing a variety of work across the food system in the city. We're delivering weight management services for public health, we're delivering cookery in the community programmes, we're community growing projects, we've got a public procurement project where we're working with local public sector caterers to make more sustainable and local food available. We're doing work on food poverty, working with food banks to address issues around food poverty, and we're also influencing and changing the policy in our city. And I'm going to come back to that policy issue, and I'm going to come back to an example of some of the ways we're doing that. But I just wanted, this work over the last 11 years has actually led, and we weren't alone in the last few years, other cities, London has now got a food strategy, Bristol, Plymouth. Cities have been following this route of using food in a cross-sector way across the city. And as a result of all of those cities coming together, we decided to develop a programme nationally within the UK. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about this because I think this is of interest to you, whether you're in the UK or from France or Holland or wherever you're from, because it's a model that we think is working in our towns and cities and communities across the UK to create an environment where food is addressed and all the issues that we need to address around food are visible within the city. The Sustainable Food Cities Network is a programme, it's a partnership programme between Food Matters, my organisation, the Soil Association and Sustain. Some of you will probably be familiar with those organisations. The programme now runs a network. As we in Brighton were realising that we were getting deeper and deeper into the work that we were doing and developing more and more projects, we realized there was a real need to learn from other cities, and also other cities wanted to learn from us. So we've created a network within the Sustainable Food Cities of cities who are working on sustainable food. We now have funded sustainable food city offices in 6 cities across the UK: Newcastle, Cardiff, Belfast, Liverpool, and Stockport, which is actually a borough of Manchester. We run annual themes and campaigns, and I want to sort of spend a little moment on that, because the theme this year is actual procurement. It's public procurement. It's the power of using public sector procurement to change our food system. And within that, this year, we've been running a Sustainable Fish Cities campaign. So obviously that's of relevance to the project that you guys are working on. Sustainable Fish Cities is in each of the cities who've signed up, and we've got 14 cities signed up to the Sustainable Fish Cities campaign. They're working to get pledges from public sector caterers, from restaurants, from individual residents, to pledge to purchase only sustainable fish. And one of the examples that I've got later on, but I'll use it now, is in Bournemouth and Poole, a coastal town down the south coast. They've now got pledges for over 2 million meals within the city to serve only sustainable fish. So it's having a real impact. And the other aspect of the programme is an award. We are developing an award for sustainable food within cities, which the cities can apply for. I'm not a great fan of awards because it sets up competition between cities, but actually sometimes that competitions between cities, between local authorities, can drive change. So we've got it, and we'll see how it develops, but hopefully the competition between cities in the UK will mean that work is driven forward and progress is made on these issues. So just a little bit about the approach. What are the principles that are embedded in this approach that we're adopting in my city, Brighton, but across the UK? The first thing, and I've only arrived this morning, but I mean, I'm sure it's been a theme throughout the sessions through the last 2 days: partnership, working together. In our cities, we want every person, every stakeholder within the food system to come together and work in partnership. So whether that's the public sector, the community sector, businesses, individual residents, universities, all come together to form a food partnership within their city to work together. And through that collaboration, we can be greater than the sum of our parts. So the partnership is a very important component of the Sustainable Food Cities approach. The second is having an action plan. You need to know that you're going to do something. So all our cities are developing action plans, and they're not just action plans and strategies which will sit on shelves. They're actually living action plans like the one that we had in Brighton and Hove, that is driving work and recognising the work that partners are doing together. And the third principle is policy. It's about influencing policy. We don't want, and this is often the case with popular issues in a particular moment, we don't want food work to be lost when the next popular issue comes along. We want to embed the work that we're doing in the policy of a city or a town. And just as an example, some of the policy strategies that are developed in cities that food fits into, the local plan that determines the spatial planning of the city, making sure that there are growing spaces and allotments and community gardens. That needs to be present in the plan. Economic development needs to recognise the value of food. Public health strategies obviously needs to include food and nutrition. Tourism strategies, let's make sure that all the tourism strategies in our towns and cities does include the value of local sustainable food and the value that brings to tourism. Community strategies, even transport. Transport has an impact. Where you place bus routes in a city can have an impact on how people access food. Transport strategies need to recognise that. Housing strategies need to make a provision for community gardens, perhaps in front of houses on housing estates. All the policy that cities and towns develop, there is food within them, and they need to reflect the value of food and the importance of having those policies present in order to safeguard this work for the future. I'll bring these up. Sorry, I'm going to bring them up. Yeah, that's it, thank you. Our food strategies, our action plans, the work that we do in our cities, we want it to be comprehensive, we want it to cover all the issues that we're talking about. Not just a question of working on one issue, but a question of working across all the issues. And the 6 key issue areas that basically encompass our food system and our food supply chain are healthy and sustainable food, promoting healthy and sustainable food, so communicating the messages that we want around healthy and sustainable food, building community knowledge and capacity, tackling food poverty and diet-related health issues, supporting a thriving and diverse economy, transforming catering and food procurement in our cities, and reducing waste and the ecological footprint of food. So if you're really working in a integrated, comprehensive way, you should be working on all those issues, or all those issues should be reflected in your action plan. So where are we now with this work? We launched the Sustainable Food Cities project about a year ago, and we've now got 32 members of the network. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but those are 32 cities. They're not just cities, they're also regions within the UK and boroughs. 32 places that now have a food partnership and this strategic action-orientated approach to food work. And in addition to that, we've got 6 cities who have dedicated sustainable food city officers within them. And we're going to have a very strong evaluation of those officers at the end of the 3-year programme. We'll understand exactly what impact having a dedicated food officer working strategically across the city is having in those places and the impact it's having on food. So just a few examples of that impact that is emerging now. The work that we've done in Brighton, we've actually been doing for the last couple of years, but just to give you an example, we've worked with our planning department in the city. We were able to sit down with our planning department because we've built up a relationship through our food partnership over the years. We were able to sit down with them and make sure that our local plan for the future 25 years of the city in Brighton included safeguarding food production on the peri-urban fringe, that it included requirements that all new developments within the city include food growing spaces within them. And I think we're now new planning applications that come through in Brighton and Hove, about 38% at the moment do now include growing spaces within them. Another example of the impact that this work is having, Cardiff, one of our cities, Cardiff and Vale NHS Hospital Trust. They built a new hospital, and I believe that's the case. It's certainly a new development for the Cardiff and Vale Hospital, and they wanted to, as usual, have food outlets on their concourse, and historically it had been, I think, Starbucks and Subway, and the Food Policy Council in Cardiff said you can't do that in a hospital. That's crazy. We need to have a much healthier offer for people coming within the hospital, and they've actually achieved that, and now they're in the process of developing tenders that require a more healthy and sustainable food offer to be made on those hospital concourse. I mentioned the Bournemouth and Poole Sustainable Fish City campaign and the 2 million meals that they've achieved. Also, I'll just make a note to them because it's probably the tourism issue. It's actually Bournemouth and Poole's food festival at the moment, and they've got, for the first time in that food festival, they've got a presence around sustainable food. They've got a restaurant hop that is going every night to 4 different restaurants within the city who are serving and prioritising local and sustainable food. So this is all work that's happening as a result of this cross-sector partnership in the cities that wouldn't be happening otherwise. So we have a modest ambition within our programme around sustainable food cities, but I don't mind sharing it with you because I think we probably all share it here, and that is to transform food in our communities across the UK. And it's a lofty ambition, but I think we can do it. We're starting already to transform food, to have more sustainable food on offer, whether it's fish or local produce, fruit and vegetables, offered in our cities. And it's about building an alternative to the conventional agri-food system that perhaps dominates our cities at the moment in order to give people choice. So our vision is to create cities, towns, communities where every nursery, hospital or work canteen serves only healthy and sustainable meals, where everyone has access to affordable and healthy sustainable food within 500 metres of where they live, where good food is visible and celebrated in every corner, in parks, gardens, borders, through independent retailers, markets, and at events and festivals, where people of all ages and backgrounds are developing skills in growing, buying, and cooking food, and are engaged in creating a positive food culture in their own community. Cities where healthy and sustainable food is embedded in local policy, strategy, and planning, and is a vehicle for delivering positive social change. Where tourists and visitors can enjoy food produced with love and care and visit the people who help produce, process, and distribute that food. Where healthy and sustainable food is, oh, that's repeated, sorry, I've already said that. Where public sector organisations, businesses, and civil society are all working together to make healthy and sustainable food a defining characteristic of their city. So I think, it's a huge ambition, but I'm sure all of you in this room recognise and are working in your own communities towards achieving that vision. And our message is that if we all work together, not just with the usual partners that you might work with, but perhaps the unusual partners, with the politicians, with the health, if you're working on tourism, if you're working on sustainable fish, work with public health, because public health is recommending eating fish, eating oily fish. So there's a natural partnership with a shared end result there. So let's work much more collaboratively than we have been in the past and make food visible and transform food in our cities and communities across the UK, across Europe, across wherever you live. Thank you.